Welcome to the next episode of the Radio Data Podcast. Today, our expert guest is Ludwig Holmstrom, who works as a product analytics director at Swedish company Mentimeter. Ludwig, it's my pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, hi Adam. It's exciting to be here. It's an honor to be on your show, and I've been looking forward to this.
Yes, likewise. And as always, let's start with the introduction. So please tell us more about yourself and your company.
Sure. Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm Ludwig Holmstrom, Harvard MBA, and I work as a product analytics director at Mentimeter, where I lead a team of analysts and data scientists. So we work closely to Mentimeter's product department with data insights and enabling decision making. So the company, Mentimeter, we build an audience engagement platform. Any clue on what that means, Adam?
Well, I assume it's a software or product that allows people to interact with their audience in more engaging way. So, for example, by using tools such as polls, surveys, quizzes, QA sessions to encourage the audience participation and give some feedback to the speaker.
Yeah, I think maybe more abstractly. I mean, we help leaders turn tough crowds into engaged audiences. So our software helps build that like immediate connection with your audience and make them part of your presentation, for example. But unlike traditional presentation software, with Menti, you create an interactive experiences by letting everyone join in, vote, ask questions, and interact throughout. So to do a Menti is to have a meaningful, engaging moment together with a group of people, and we're on a mission to make meetings more fun and to make voices heard.
And your product needs to have nice tools and features and a very convenient UI so that it becomes easy to use, especially during the live events. But I also assume that it must use some data and analytics. So could you please share how you use data at Mentimeter to make your product even better?
I think there are two parts to this. I mean, first, data is at the heart of our user-facing product, and to a great extent, what it does is real-time visualization of data that comes from an audience. So you have the leader, it could be a presenter, a teacher, or like a meeting facilitator that sets the structure. And then you have the audience that provides input using their smartphones, like perhaps by answering or asking a question, voting, or putting their pin on an image. And what we do is to visualize that audience input data in like beautiful communicative ways, right? That makes the audience voices heard. So data is really what enables more engaging meetings in a way. And I guess prior to mainstream smartphone adoption, like around 2012, 2013, this type of engaging interactivity was not as feasible, right? Because yeah, imagine a meeting where everyone talks and interacts at the same time, and what everyone talks about still makes sense to everyone else. I mean, that would be kind of crazy, right? In a traditional presentation, it's usually like one-to-many communication, right? But this is, in a way, our product in a way is many-to-many. And so technology and data visualization can allow this to happen. And I mean, I guess I personally absolutely love our product. But I guess so data is used in the product, but then on the product development side, I mean, we use analytics to inform decisions. And in our quest to make voices heard, we use active leaders as kind of a North Star metric to drive towards that and to inform changes to the product and so on. So happy to talk more about either side of the story here. Yeah.
And out of curiosity, what is the typical scale of the meetings or public events where Mentimeter is used? because, as you said, you need to collect the data in real time and visualize it immediately. So I'm curious, what is the volume of the data that you need to process at Mentimeter every minute or every hour?
Yeah, so I think the real-time part is for a given presentation or session, right? And that can be anywhere from someone having a meeting with their team, maybe doing a retrospective or a quiz or something to I think we've had cases where it's like a large stadium with like 10,000 people
Yeah,
connecting with
exactly.
their smartphone. I guess the only issue there is if you have like Wi-Fi for everyone, but maybe they use 4G or something to connect. And you get like a whole giant company audience to contribute and ask questions to in like a giant town hall, for example, or a quarterly all hands. And we use it ourselves too every week. We run like a Menti Listen show with the entire company where we use our own product to kind of engage with everyone, and that's that's hundreds of people. So it's and I guess that translates into data, right? Like the underlying data model would be something like you have sessions or presentations as one entity, and then you have interactions, and you have maybe the analogy to slides, and so it becomes obviously like millions of millions and millions of data rows. But the real-time part is in our production database and happens within a single presentation.
And what is the biggest ever event where Mentimeter was used to engage the audience?
Ooh, I don't have that answer at my fingertips right now. I think what I've heard it was a big stadium with one of our business, like our enterprise customers that ran it for the whole, like a S&P 100 corporation
Mm-hmm.
that would run it for their entire company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So it's
Um, it's been huge, but there's of course the long tail of
mm-hmm.
5, 6 people using it to check in on everyone in a team meeting and so on as well.
So, what is the most challenging task in providing those real-time visualizations at Mentimeter?
Um, the real-time visualization, I think that is like a technical solution, right? Like I think that works quite well and is something we built to scale. But I think the challenge for a company, right, is we believe in this market where we want to lead the way and secure like a market leadership position. And today, people know today what it means to do to Google something, right? But not everyone knows what it means to do a Menti.
Mhm.
Now you know, Adam, right?
Yes.
uh, and not knowing that is the great challenge for us. Like, how do we show our value proposition? Like, we have so many power users and businesses today that kind of get and love our product, but to capture the world, we need to build and market our product in a way that clearly shows what value that Menti can bring to every leader and organization. And nailing that value proposition is hard, right? Because it's the audience engagement platforms are still unknown to most people. And then of course, like once a leader understand and use us for something, say the department all hands, like we need to become a natural part of that leaders and company's workflow and create a habit around our product. And that, I think that behavioral transformation is necessary if we're to make meetings and presentations in the world more fun and
Mhm.
engaging. But then I guess in terms of analytics, I think one of our biggest challenges is to understand and control our customer journey. Like we're kind of early on in the process, but we want to establish like a single source of truth and expand our whole like user funnel with CRM tools and go from just looking at users in the product, like from registration to usage and conversion, to go all the way, from awareness to multi-user enterprise deal on the other side, right? then of course there are technical challenges as well, right, to make this scale. But I'm personally maybe more on the insights and product side here.
So far you have mentioned two group of use cases, how you use data and analytics at Mentimeter. One is providing data and insights to the leaders so that they can engage the audience and get the feedback from the audience in real time, and you can also visualize it in a very nice way. And the second group is our internal use cases, where you can analyze the customer journey to assess how advanced a particular customer is in using Mentimeter, how often this customer uses the product, what features it has already tried or haven't tried yet, and so on. So this definitely helps you later to measure the customer lifetime value, for instance, or even figure out what are the key differences between the user who uses Mentimeter regularly all the time and customer who use Mentimeter only from time to time. And maybe you can also discover the reasons why customer belongs to one of those two groups, regular users or ad hoc users.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there is the whole analytics for decision making part, right? And what works and what doesn't, and you know, I mentioned that we have like active leaders as a kind of North Star KPI, and I guess we do strategic analysis, and we look at our KPIs to kind of figure out what's right and to learn about our users. And you know, I mean, as any SaaS company, we care about recurring revenue, right? Yet usage and getting people to use the product, like being active, is at the core, and that correlates pretty well with willingness to pay. So our, I mean, to help decision making in product sales and marketing, like so that they can drive active leaders in various ways, right? We help break it down for them. Like in product, for example, like we care very much about the pirate metrics. Do you know the pirate metrics? Like
No, I don't.
R. So it's acquisition, activation, and retention, and
Uh-huh.
I mean, as well as conversion and monetization. So I mean, to make sure we're aligned with what users want, and to make sure we go in the right direction, like we follow these set of KPIs closely, and especially in the leadership team. So for example, we do like a retrospective forum with product leadership every month, where we look at our performance, like what caused any changes, such as like product releases or experiments or external factors or seasonality, like how did user behavior change. And we also dive into this, like as you mentioned, like relevant strategic topics or decisions, where we have analysis and data from one of our data scientists or product managers, for example. And yeah, I mean, that kind of helps us make more informed decisions, and kind of tying back to your question, like we might have some users that use us once a month, some that use us for a large audience, whatever. Who should we cater for? How much should we charge them? There's all these questions and decisions that you have to make, and their data is like a really powerful tool to, because yeah, versus just like going off of experience or some gut feeling, you can actually test stuff and with the users.
So this is all about implicit data that you need to gather based on how customers are using your product and how they react to product changes. But you can also get some explicit data, because you can schedule a meeting with your customers and use actually Mentimeter to get explicit feedback from them. As well, and maybe they can vote for new features, maybe they can assign priorities to some items in the product roadmap, and so on.
Yeah, I mean, on the point of contacting the customer, we actually have like user researchers as well, right? So we look at we try to combine like the qualitative data with the quantitative data with the qualitative data, and do like user interviews and so on to first we look at how they behave, and then we look at what they say, and sometimes those line up perfectly, and we know exactly what's going on, and and that can be really give really powerful insights. Yeah, I should mention too that, I mean, I guess I talked mostly about like working with leadership, and I think that's one way to go in the right direction. Like, but in the Menti product department, we have this philosophy, like we believe in the power of like aligned yet autonomous product teams. So we have like a strong guiding strategy, and then individual team missions that the teams run on, and with that kind of autonomy org philosophy, I also think that it's necessary and kind of worth the investment for every team to be in control of their metrics and contribution to our performance. So like every team can kind of learn for itself with data. And I think, I mean, it's pretty expensive to hire like a data scientist for every team. So we also need a challenge is to build, and I believe this is the way to go right now, is to build self-service analytics and like automation for the teams. Like I think that will be super important for us. And yeah, as an example, and shout out to the DNA team here that I work with, we have enabled the product teams to like almost independently run their own experiments, where they will get like, they test something in the product, and then they will get automatic self-serve metrics back to validate or reject their hypothesis.
So a kind of A/B testing framework, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we try to standardize like the metrics that they get back now, I think, but they can also implement their own kind of events in the product, and they want to measure some ratio or something, and we built kind of a process and a framework for that. Yeah.
And can you also tell more about the technology and data stack that you are using, especially given the fact that you focus on self-service analytics, so that data practitioners at Mentimeter can explore the data and make also educated, data-driven decisions?
Yeah, I mean, maybe on the data stack, maybe it's a bit oversimplified here, but we use Redshift and kind of pull in data from our tracking API, from product database, and various other sources, and then we run a daily pipeline. I mean, and historically we've had kind of notebooks all over the place with different kind of widgets and stuff that people code and pull data from Redshift, and on the self-serve, I mean, the challenge for us, because we've been growing quite fast as a company. Like as a small company, you can get away with some notebooks owned by single people, right? But as you grow and you want self-serve, you don't want everyone to define their own metrics in every place, right? In every notebook. So we're migrating to Looker as our kind of BI tool on top of that, and we want that to be the kind of single source of truth for our metrics. And this should also enable product managers and others in the company to kind of find and have a single definition of their KPIs and find their A/B testing metrics and so on in one place. And for power users then to like explore our data, but still keep the consistency of like dimensions and measures. And have them be defined in the same way across the company. It is a challenge, right, to create alignment and ownership of metrics across the company. It's a fun one.
Yes, exactly. So when the company scales and you have different units at your company, they can consider different metrics in a different way. And interesting example that I often see when we work with different companies at getting data is actually churn.
Mm-hmm.
And in your case, you can measure the churn of leaders because they might start or stop using the product for their individual reasons. You can also measure the churn of companies because they can also start or stop using the product for their own different reasons. And the same about the audience, because some attendees might also start or stop using your product. And of course, the context of the leaders, companies, and attendees can be different, so that the definition of the churn can be different when you look at each group of the users of your product. So you might need to agree how the churn should be calculated, detected, and prevented. And maybe you should also have some KPIs and metrics that are well understood by the whole company.
Yeah.
Because also you might want to look at the aggregated metrics to, for example, avoid the situation that you prevent churn in one group, but at the same time you increase the churn in the other group of users.
No, exactly, and we would like, ideally, I think it's the most powerful if everyone in the company speaks the same language and rallies towards the same North Star metric, broken down in a similar way, right? And if someone says our churn is 70%, everyone should know what that means. And,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
this year we brought churn from 70 to 75, or whatever, down
Yes.
65%, and
Yeah, exactly.
and it's
Exactly.
worth X amount of something. But that's so we've actually had an ongoing project to standardize our KPIs. First, we have like KPIs at the company level, like a small set that really matters. And then we have breakdowns of those, like into product and marketing and sales and other departments, right? So that it's hard as a team, right, to address the very top level metric. Just say, oh, you guys go off and drive active leaders. That's quite a big scope, right? But then in a product team, for example, you might break it down into, oh, we're gonna address this step of the funnel, or we're gonna get people to convert on the plans page or something, and then ultimately it drives the whole equation.
And are there any KPIs or dashboards that you look at every day or every week as a product analytics director at Mentimeter?
Yeah, I personally follow the pirate metrics, the R, and I follow the 10 metrics that we have defined for our kind of report for the product areas that the one we use in the retrospective I mentioned. Because we need to understand those, right? And we need to attribute performance to those. So that's actually that's something I'm personally pretty excited about is performance attribution, because we see you have a set of 10 metrics and you look at them every day, right? And they go up and down and they go, and it's like, oh, I think the difference between a company that's pretty new and someone who's really mature in performance attribution is to say that, like if you take a public big company, right, that has to do quarterly earnings reports and forecast their EPS, right? They know kind of exactly how the plan that they have will affect their earnings in the end. Like, oh, we're going to run these 3 marketing campaigns, we're going to ship these 5 products, and we have a long history of performance attribution that helps us understand where the changes are coming from. And we know seasonality looks like this over the year, so we know exactly where we'll land. Whereas in the beginning, you just define and track those metrics, and I wake up in the morning and I look at my dashboard and it's like, oh, it went up or it went down, and it's oh, what happened? And we get asked the same question every time, right? Why did this change? And I think that's also like an area where we can automate a lot, like both understand where it comes from, like what campaigns did we run, what products did we release, what world events happened, and then like what are the drivers, like in an automated way. It should be possible to do for a robot, right? To answer that question, and that's something I would love to build for Mentimeter and become really good at.
So is it currently done semi-automatically or manually? So how do you currently figure out what contributed to the spike in a given KPI?
Yeah, I think the process, the way it looks today, is that a metric changes, right? And we have this metric across a number of dimensions, and we can segment on those dimensions, or we can segment on like what step in the funnel changed. If we look at like activation, for example, we can say where in the funnel did it change? If activation went up, where did the bottleneck change, right? or in which markets, or in which type of user, and so on. But what I think we can get even better at, like the next level in performance attribution here, is to be able to say, perhaps on a bit longer time horizon, but like we say this month, in January, activation went up, and these are the kind of products we shipped that affected it, and by how much, and these are the registrations we got from marketing. These are the channels they came from. This is the quality of those registrations. This is, there's kind of layers you can start peel back almost on a metric. And first it's like you kind of ask like why, and then
yeah,
get to the bottom of it. Yeah.
And in this case, like the more data sets you are able to include in your analysis, or the more metrics you can store in your database, then it's easier to explore and figure out why a given metric changes. Because if you don't have the information like stored in a convenient way somewhere, that you released new product feature, or that some like huge event happened somewhere, then it's impossible to figure that out.
Yeah, like it sits in someone's head, right? It's like you have to ask 10 different people, and someone happened to know that, oh, this was released yesterday, and that's no, that's a really great point, and it's, I guess it's part of maturing here is to I mean, we talked about like expanding to the funnel to be like one global funnel, and incorporate more kind of steps, and that will also help explain a lot, because if you only look, it's almost like you stare at a tree in the woods, right? But you don't consider everything else that goes on. If you only look at activation or only look at retention, and then you need the full equation and the different. Yeah, super interesting. And I guess, there are also more things we can track in the product to predict whether someone will churn or retain or convert, right? That's where like it gets pretty interesting for, I think, our like data scientists, right? To build like more like statistical models and things that we love to do. I guess this whole kind of setting up metrics and standardizing and creating a process and so on, that's kind of not that much fun for someone who loves statistics and data science on our team, but it's kind of like
exactly
rolling up our sleeves and get it done. Yeah.
So there are many interesting use cases for data scientists at Mentimeter. For example, customer lifetime value. So this is the metric that can give you a lot of information about, for instance, estimated future revenue, or it can be also used for a customer support, especially if they have a large number of requests or messages, and they need to somehow prioritize who they should respond first. And they can prioritize by the request time, topic, urgency, or they can also prioritize based on the customer lifetime value.
Almost all the department can work on customer lifetime value, right? But it is kind of a high level metric that each contribute to different components of almost. And have you heard of like growth loops, or this concept of? I mean, people used to think it's like, oh, it's just we think of the funnel, but have you heard of like growth loops? For example, like in marketing, you look at like, what's the cost of acquisition for a customer, and then all the steps and drivers in between, and then what's the lifetime value, and it kind of feeds on itself if you have a positive relation, for example, in the paid marketing loop, as an example. Historically, Mentimeter has actually been mostly viral growth, which is super interesting. Like we haven't had to pay a single dollar in marketing, because we've spread virally, because you have someone presenting and using and loving our product, and then you have 20 audience members who all gets exposed because of this presentation, and then a couple of them picks it up later on. And that's also something we measure, right? Like, how does our viral loop work? What share of registrations come from there, and so on, right? And
Yes, that's true. So, for example, you can also measure the conversion rate, for instance, to know how often and when someone who is attendee of the event when Mentimeter is used becomes later a leader who uses the Mentimeter in his or her events. So, let's call it a conversion from passive user who is attending to an active user who is moderating the event.
Yeah, exactly. And it might be pretty interesting for marketing too, because you might have the lifetime value of one user, and it call say you get an LTV of I don't know, $50, and they cost 40 to acquire. It doesn't seem like that's so good. I mean, it might take 5 years to get return on your money, right, or something. But then if you consider that that user is really active, and then they kind of spread the word to their friends, I think especially with a viral product like Mentimeter, it can have that like multiplier effect from the viral loop, that we or maybe they work at a company and it spreads in the company, right? Like to colleagues and so on, and eventually an entire company uses our product.
Yes, it's really interesting characteristic of your product.
Yeah, I think so, and yeah, as I said, it all kind of ties back to using the product and driving usage, and it is kind of product led in that sense, that we need to have a good engine, a good product that kind of makes these loops work, and I think we're getting there too.
So we already talked about some unique characteristics of your product, but let's look at your company. Would you be
Mhm.
able to describe what makes working with data and analytics at your company quite unique and special? Because
Mhm.
in the past, you worked at a number of really cool companies like Spotify, and of course, each company is unique, has
Mhm.
something special. And what is unique and special about Mentimeter?
Absolutely. I mean, there are a number of things. I mean, I personally think Mentimeter is like a hidden gem in the Swedish tech landscape, and it's a combination of the data and technology and our people, right? So I would say it's our team, it's product leadership, the product itself, the data we have to work with, and our company culture. I want to start by saying that I think we have gathered like a really inspiring, super smart and ambitious data team. And shout out to Jakob, Tove, Linus, Sara, and Kerli. And more on the people side, first, I think product leadership we believes in data and analytics. Our CPO, Jakob Nettelblad, has an analytics background and understands how to use our team in the best possible way, which makes collaboration there very efficient and good. And of course, maybe more on the data side, right? We have the product is amazing to track, right? Because it's one global product. We can build a data model that scales over the whole world. Like I've been used to, I think in previous roles we've had to kind of every market had a very different setup and different systems and different things that had to be integrated. But here it's like you define things once, and then you can do an analysis over 200 countries. It's like just group by country. It's such a pleasure to work with the data, and I think once we kind of get a little further with our data platform and modeling the data in a good way, it will be so nice for data scientists to just kind of have quality data sets that cover all users and kind of all steps. So like doing analysis on the Mentimeter data, because it's one product, is a real pleasure. And then I think I also want to highlight that on a company level, right, the company culture is shaped by like what I believe, a strong founder's vision and company leadership. Worth mentioning is that Mentimeter was a bootstrapped company, so like without external funding, and kind of profitable since day one, and growing from our own profits. And I think that not having like a VC or external party investor early on has allowed our founders to really shape the company culture in a way that they believed in and that resonates with everyone working at Menti. We have our core values, right? And we believe in the power of together. Like, I think we put a lot of love, money, and effort into our people experience and the office vibe. It's everything from like great afterworks, where everyone can bring their family and friends, to like Friday yoga, meditation, and serving a delicious meal every day at the office. And it might sound like those are just superficial perks, but it's really quite the opposite. Like we know that meeting with each other for real creates like psychological safety that is really crucial for us humans to thrive. And I really love the coming to the office, and I think it's very different from other companies I've been at. People bring their whole selves to work and connect us as human beings, and that I think helps us reach our potential as a team.
And I also like what you said as an answer in one of the previous questions, that as a company you also use Mentimeter. So I assume that you are very advanced users of Mentimeters. So during the town hall meetings or during some brainstorming sessions, your teammates are very engaged and very responsive. So I believe that it's a lot of brain power, and everyone who attends a particular meeting can like bring interesting input and help to make a good decision that the company can make. Because if you increase the engagement, and I think that as a company, you know how to do that because you create a technology for that. This can also help your company to make good decisions and feel that everyone has a voice that counts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. And I think this both on the IT side with our own, dog feeding our own tool, and on the people side, like that we have a core value that is include everyone. Like we believe that the best work is done in an inclusive, transparent, like gender equal and diverse workplace. And if you include a lot of different opinions, even if you have like you get to better decisions and to better data products and to better everything. And yeah, we really have that in the team, which is something I think is fantastic and personally value quite a lot. And we also like to have fun. Like it should be a joy to work, and we welcome a lot of fun initiatives, both in and outside of work, because we do it for a lot of years. So.
And it's consistent with Swedish culture, where decisions are made in a very collaborative way.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great point. You worked at Swedish companies, Adam, right? Like,
exactly.
What's your impression of?
Yeah. I think that it's really good because you avoid making stupid decisions. So sometimes the meetings can be longer because decision is made collaboratively, not by just one person, but the outcome of such a meeting can be bigger and more correct. So I personally like this approach. And for instance, at my company, Getting Data, we make decisions in a very similar way. So so very often, almost always, decisions are discussed together, like everyone has a chance to say something. Sometimes, of course, someone is responsible for collecting the input from everyone and making the final judgment, but this is done during the meetings with a larger group. Yeah. So I must admit that we actually adopted many behaviors and many habits from Swedish culture, like from Spotify, the company that few of us worked at before funding our company. And we also work with a number of Swedish companies. So I would say that we are sharing and adopting parts of Swedish culture here in Poland, in Warsaw.
Wow, incredible. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's and I think you also need a dynamic team for that to work, like a mix of backgrounds. I mean, and it's something that when doing recruiting, it gets really difficult. Yet it's like the most important task to have that combination of opinions almost and skill sets and still have everyone work well together.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure you're aware in getting data.
Yeah. So, for instance, when we recruit, we look not only at technical skills and competences, but also at behavior. How willing he or she is to share their opinions, take some responsibilities, gather input from other people, become team player. So those are very important characteristics, because like we are experts at technology, and this is the biggest value of working with us, that we have the knowledge in big data analytics cloud, but of course those technologies change so much in the current world. So like 8 years ago, like many companies work on premise with Hadoop. Now companies use the cloud. In the cloud, you see the shift into modern data platforms that are mainly using SQL as a main data processing language. So the technology landscape changes very much. So it's very important to be collaborative and be a good team player, because thanks to that you can also learn from others, and you can be part of a good team where you can learn much faster.
You actually started with Hadoop, right? How did you realize that it was time to shift? Like from what did you have any data or insight
it
on
was
that?
it was actually quite easy, because we still worked at Spotify as employees when Spotify made a decision to switch from on-premise infrastructure to the cloud. It was kind of milestone, very important moment. If you look at big data history, a company like Spotify moved to Google Cloud. So since then, we started watching the cloud and trying to adopt it. But of course, it took a number of years until the cloud became mainstream. Yeah, so I remember that when we started working on our first project at Getting Data in 2014, I wasn't able to sleep well, because I was thinking that maybe we shouldn't do that on premise, but we should go directly to the cloud with our new Greenfield project. But at that time in 2014, even if Spotify was like making a decision to move to the cloud, then still there were like many advantages of doing that on premise, because cloud was not as easy, not as cheap as it is today.
I guess you have to look at the whole distribution of customers, like maybe Spotify is in the forefront as well in making that decision compared to the full market.
Yeah. But now everything what we do is in the cloud.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seemed to have been a good decision, and just looking at your company's success, and congratulations on such a journey. 8 years.
Thank you very much. And from my side, I would like to thank you, Ludwig, for sharing your knowledge and describing us how you use data and analytics at Mentimeter. And I keep fingers crossed for your product and its increasing adoption.
Thank you so much, Adam. It was an honor and a pleasure speaking with you, and thank you for having me on your show.